It's official, America wants a divorce. Half of Trump supporters and almost half of Biden supporters want to secede the union. That means cut it in twain, in two, in half. What do you think? Do we, as Matthew McConaughey says, need a new type of politics altogether? Or is there a way back to reconciliation? Hello, all 4 million of you, and thank you very much for your subscriptions and for your comments and keeping us on track, keeping us honest, optimistic, hopeful and transparent. Today we're talking about a recent survey, and I accept I'm English, I don't live in your country. A recent survey by the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia found that about 50% of Donald Trump voters and about 40% of Joe Biden voters agreed to some extent with the proposition that the country should split up, with either red or blue states seceding. UVA surveyed 2012 voters, half of whom voted for Trump, the other half who voted for President Joe Biden, in late July in order to better understand the growing split between the Democratic and Republican parties. The results show a country at ideological war with itself. More than half of the surveyed Trump voters, approximately 52%, said the situation is such that I would favour a red and blue states seceding from the union to form their own separate country. Approximately 41% of Biden voting respondents answered similarly. Isn't that an interesting approach to the culture war? All day, every day, airwaves and online spaces are filled with conflict and contradiction, seemingly intransigent and immovable conflict between people. This opinion on hot button topics, this opinion on cultural matters. And sometimes I feel that this is a cultural phenomenon that cannot be overcome simply through discourse, chatting about it, that you at some point have to accept. All right, some people really see the world differently than I do. Why should that be a problem in my everyday life? My mate once said in response to me saying, we live in limitless space. Yeah, but we also live in Clapton Pond in Hackney. Yes, we are in unbounded consciousness. Yes, we are participants in a geopolitical globalist drama, but we also just live down our street or in our block or down our lane or in our road. We live in the reality of our relationships with other people. And I think many of us spend a lot of our time in abstract concepts. I'm doing these videos and they're important to me, but I'll leave here. My problems are feeding my dog, walking my children. No, wait. What I'm saying is that sometimes our actual lives are being occupied by things that we're receiving on screens and through media, when actually if I encountered 100 people on the street with 100 different opinions from me, most of the time, if they fell over or dropped their shopping or needed some help or asked to borrow a quarter or a dollar or a pound note, I'd say yes to almost anybody. If you were to sort of describe to me the various ways that these people would say, well, they said they don't like you, they don't agree with your opinions, they would prohibit your right to or demand that you use or say that you should do, then I would just feel conflict. In a sense, I wonder, this is a big question and I would ask it of Great Britain too, or the United Kingdom, however you see it. What is the United Kingdom doing? What is the United States doing for you? How does it benefit you? The question would be, does the nation state exist to support the majority of its subjects or citizens or civilians, or does it exist as a framework to support the interests of big business while necessarily turning ordinary people against one another within the realm of these cultural issues, many of which might not affect your life? Of course they will as well, but might not affect your life all of the time. So how do you benefit? I'm asking myself the question, how do I benefit from being a member of the United Kingdom? Well, I guess, and we wouldn't be replacing it with nothing. I'm not suggesting nihilism. Devolution is what's being suggested there. The United Kingdom has toyed around with devolution, an assembly in Wales, a Scottish parliament, necessary acknowledgement of the autonomous status of previously colonised countries that we've been at war with, such as obviously Ireland. For me, the reason I argue with devolution is not because I don't love national myths of great countries with beautiful cultural myths like America and all of its sort of glory and beauty, but because I'm beginning to see that there's another side to that story, that in the case of the UK and the case of America, that involves a lot of tyranny, a lot of exploitation, most of which was undertaken for economic reasons, but sort of pounded down on the rights of various ordinary people. And I'm not talking about from particular demographics, I'm talking about in general. And in a sense, these nations become poverty creating machines and wealth creating machines. And you know from the wealth transfer that's happened in the last 18 months which way the money is flowing. So devolution for me presents an opportunity for the power that affects your life to be closer to your life, for you to have a relationship with it. The more that a community is able to influence the decisions that affect the lives of the members of that community, the better things are. For me, we're all trying to express ourselves. We're all trying to become the person we truly are. We're all trying to expand into our potential as though we were surrounded by a morphic field of possibility that we can fulfill by awakening, by freeing ourselves of negative character traits that prohibit and inhibit us. The problem being that we live in cultural machines that continually stimulate us into states of fear and desire and prevent us from growing. The survey shows Republicans and Democrats heavily distrust one another, with 80% or more of respondents from each party saying the opposite side presents a clear and present danger to American democracy. It's weird, isn't it? There already is, in a sense, you recognise that a nation is a concept. That of course there is a landmass, a flag, an anthem, and a reported history and an unreported history. But if 80% of each of the respondents on either side say the other side are a danger, it's like a fairy story, isn't it? It's like a fairy story where people, they believed the other tribe was baddies. You know, like how is that going to be overcome without reducing the sort of temperature of our current social debate? In addition, 80% or more of the survey respondents said they're worried they or someone close to them will experience personal loss or suffering due to the effects of the opposing party's policies. Wow, so it's creating genuine, real, individual fear wherever you are on the spectrum. We have so much in common, even when it comes to apparent bipartisan conflict. An overwhelming number of Trump voters in the survey, about 83%, said that society needs to stop the many radical and immoral people trying to ruin things in the country, further noting that the US needs a powerful leader in order to destroy the radical and immoral currents prevalent in society. Biden voters were less supportive of the same sentiments. For example, 62% of Biden voters at least somewhat agreed the country needs a powerful leader in order to destroy the radical and immoral currents in the country, compared to 82% of Republicans who said the same. Well, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because I suppose there is some inference around the idea of a strong leader. One person who is questioning the nature of politics more fundamentally, and certainly would be a strong leader in my eyes, is Matthew McConaughey. Let's see what he said on this podcast.
You said politics needs redefinition, so why not redefine it?
Whew. Whew.
Who? What's that?
Whew. Right?
I like Matthew McConaughey. He's willing to communicate in shrill shrieks and sounds. Like, I don't know anyone else who would have answered that question like, what if he'd not said anything else? That's a man with a lot of charisma.
Hell, I'd love to hear some definitions. I'm working on what I'm trying to understand politics to be. I think we got to redefine politics. If each party's only about preservation of party, well, I'm almost arguing that's undemocratic. If you're only there to, by hook or by crook, preserve your party, you're leaving out 50% of the people. So I think politics needs a redefining. Look, are the parties so extreme right now that they're going to walk their way into extinction? I don't know. What our fear is, great nations aren't taken over from the outside. They implode. Civil war. That's the big fear for me, for the country, is this path we're going.
I know a lot of people are concerned about a civil war in America. It's something that's talked about a lot in online spaces. And this secession idea, I suppose, is a way to acknowledge without physical conflict or military conflict or whatever type of conflict that might be into this day and age. Tim Pool, when he was on the podcast, talked about that we're already in a phase of civil war in terms of contempt for both sides. And even the results of this survey suggest a degree of disparity and oppositionism that is a challenge to the idea of one cohesive nation. Also, I agree with Matthew McConaughey, mostly on his point, but also on his points like that a new type of politics is required. And you can't have a political situation that is so judgmental and condemnatory of the other 50% of people, of whatever side. Once contempt enters the argument, I think you're in real trouble. Compassion and love for people you disagree with is sort of fundamental, I feel.
It's not constructive. I don't see the way out right now through politics, unless it redefines itself and repurposes itself.
Why are you not doing that? Letting anybody know who you're for, who you're against.
Taking sides on a political issue right now, to me, precedes the discussion of something larger and much more important, like the questions we were asking a minute ago. The definition is, what the hell is politics? But you got to read before we start saying, hey, this is where I stand, this is where I stand, which creates already a divide, or 50% of the people are going to come at you. Let's answer these other questions about purpose of democracy. All right, what is progress? How about this question? Do we really want to be a United States of America? And I don't say that with arrogance or condescension. It's a question we got to answer. What is leadership? Why is our nation's trust level so low with our leaders, with ourselves, with each other? That's more interesting to me before we start hopping in the middle of politics going, well, this is where I stand here and this is where I stand here. Everybody needs to be in the conversation to answer the questions that I was just bringing up.
So does America need a divorce? Would all the nations in the world benefit from devolution? Is it a fact that the reason to concentrate central power at the level of state government is in order to create relationships with transnational global corporations in order to treat the population of that nation state primarily as a marketplace and prevent there being any real democratic process, because that real democracy would prevent those relationships functioning without interruption? So many questions. What do you think would be better for your country, America? What do you think would be better for Britain? What kind of democracy would you like to live in? What do you believe progress to be? What would a better world look like? Do you think it's possible for the apparent opposing sides, who in my opinion aren't a million miles away from one another, what would it take for them to work collegiately together in true union? Wouldn't it be beautiful, really, if one day we could all cooperate and collaborate together with freedom, with absolute freedom, like that we could run our own lives and communities? In a sense, unless we mobilize, unless we have these kind of conversations, we are doomed to more homeostasis in a world that is, well, it's not stagnating, it's bursting into flames. It's a combustible situation. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what kind of world you'd like to live in. Give us a like. Describe how anarcho-syndicalism could work on a global level. You know, just put that in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, have a look at this one. You'll like that too. But this little sauce pot, you are going to probably want to marry that one. And please sign up to my mailing list. It's just a click away. Stay free.